The corridor outside my father's hospital room hummed with fluorescent coldness, every surface scrubbed and sterile. My shoes squeaked on the linoleum as I paced, phone clenched in my hand, trying to keep my voice low. Mom sat slumped on one of the cracked blue chairs, wringing her shopping bag straps, shoulders hunched. My cousin Hugo was leaned against the vending machine, arms folded, gaze fixed on the grid of snacks as if he could will the world to pause. "You can't just walk away from your studies, Daniel. This isn't the time," my sister Carolina hissed, pinning me between the corridor wall and her anger. The phone heated my ear, her voice sharper than any needle or IV. I felt the weight of her stare even from 1,000 kilometers away. "I'm not walking away. I have to go to the conference. It's a big deal. Someone from Blizzard is going to be there." She cut me off. "You want to make games? Seriously? Dad's in the ICU and you're running after fantasies. This isn't what he raised us for." Mom flinched at my side as if Carolina's words struck her too. Hugo glanced up briefly, eyes empty. The anger and grief rolled together in my gut. "We all grew up playing games, Caro. Remember the emulator? Pokémon? I want to make something real. I want to build worlds, not just..." Hugo snorted. "Creating Mario in your bedroom? Yeah, right." He jerked his chin, final as if he'd solved something difficult. I steadied myself on the handrail, the swirls of disinfectant and distant plastic hospital food nauseating. The hollow ache stretched through me, pressed sharp against my heart. The corridors of Albert Einstein Hospital were the same concrete and glass as ever, but that night they seemed endless. Carolina spoke softer, suddenly older, exhausted. "You know what Uncle Volta said to me? He said, 'You can't eat a video game. Is Daniel going to buy medicine with a score?' Everyone's whispering. 'Please, just listen, you're hurting Mom.'" I closed my eyes. Behind the glass door, I caught a glimpse of Dad's face, the oxygen mask, the graying beard, the rise and fall of his chest under hospital sheets. Mom was silent, twisting her hands. I spoke, voice thick. "I'll come back, I promise. I need to try. I can't stay here and pretend it doesn't matter to me anymore. If it doesn't mean anything, then what am I?" Dead silence, then Carolina, low and ragged. "Just don't regret what you choose." The phone beeped as she hung up. The hospital corridor stretched on, a canyon between the life I knew and the life I was chasing. That was the night I left, carrying my backpack, a battered laptop, and the echo of their laughter behind me. The first winter in Below Horizont was all drizzle and cold floors, my rented studio smelling faintly of mildew. The window overlooked the narrow street and tangled cables, and at sunrise the city woke with sharp edges and an air of barely contained chaos. I set up the laptop on a chipped table, surrounded by notebooks full of sketches, level flows, and lists of possible character names. Arcada, I'd called the project. A fantasy city, half a love letter to Sao Paulo's washed-out, rain-worn corners, half a coded plea not to be forgotten. Some nights I wrote code until dawn, my neck aching, my fingers cramped. The money I'd saved from odd jobs, waiting tables after class, working tech support for a phone company, ran thin fast. Cup noodles, black coffee, an old radio playing a static crowded samba station. When Carolina called once a week, her voice was careful, emotion tucked behind polite questions. "How's the weather? Did you find a new job? Are you eating?" But never, "How's the game?" Never, "Are you happy?" After Dad passed, Mom sent a single message with no salutation, just, "Please take care, the world isn't soft for dreamers, come home if it's too hard." I read it so many times, I almost memorized the curve of her words. The days turned to months, more doors closed than opened. I sent demo reels and portfolios to small studios, indie collectives, even English-language pitches to publishers in California and Tokyo. Sometimes not even a no obrigado, radio silence. The insults from home replayed in my mind on loop. "Child's play, waste of time, why can't you be like Hugo," who had gone into civil engineering, boring but safe, building real structures instead of pixelated ones. A year passed, my hair grew longer, beard patchier. I found a job fixing office printers which barely paid for the rent. Some nights exhaustion threatened to drown the tiny voice that urged me to keep at it. I stopped answering calls. Friends fell away like leaves shaken from a branch. If pain could condense into code, Arcada would have been solid lead, yet the characters in Arcada lived in my mind. Each night when the world shrank to only the thrum of my computer fan and the taste of cheap coffee, I breathed life into them. Their city was built layer by layer, neon signs flickering against rain-streaked windows, crumbling brickwork, silhouettes moving in yellow lamplight. My loneliness went into the hushed bars, the laughter echoing down empty alleys. The longing for home colored every dialogue, every pixel. When the game was finally ready for a beta, I had no budget for marketing. Just a Twitter thread, GIFs, a few posts in Reddit's indie dev forums. Maybe 24 people downloaded the build, then 100. A streamer in Canada with a fondness for indie titles picked it up. Their playthrough got 30,000 views. Emails trickled in. I've never seen Sao Paulo rendered like this. I recognized my own apartment block. Even the bugs, NPCs stuck looping in doorways, the rain animation freezing, felt like little affirmations that it was real, imperfect, but growing. One night my inbox filled with an email from a Boston publisher. Let's talk. I read it twice, then again. The heartbreak that had driven me felt almost holy, but I didn't call anyone at home. 3 years from that hospital corridor, I stood in the lobby of a glass-walled co-working space in downtown Sao Paulo, holding a badge that spelled my name correctly for once. Guest speaker. Daniel Gomes. Tech people and students milled about, some pausing at the demo booth where Arcada ran on loop. The publisher had brought it to Steam, then ported it to Switch. Sales were moderate but reviews passionate. Universities started putting it on syllabi in digital art classes. The event was the first Festival do Jogo Brasileiro. The city I had left to chase a fantasy now ballooned before me in summer heat, jacarandas shedding purple blossoms on cracked pavement. I took the 5 p.m. slot, palms sweating, voice cracking only twice as I told the story. The loneliness, the faith, the bugs, the strange joy of seeing players find shortcuts I never wrote. How Arcada was less a game than a love letter, a way to forgive myself for leaving and maybe to ask for forgiveness too. Afterward, I sat in a sunlit cafe across from Paulista Avenue, nervously dredging the foam of my cappuccino, watching the sky change. My phone, long silent from numbers I'd once blocked, buzzed with Carolina's name. I almost let it ring out. Her voice was tentative. Me saw you on the news, you're famous now, huh? A child's voice echoed in the background, her daughter. I pictured the apartment, the TV crackling. Not famous, people just played my game. You're coming home for the birthday, right? Mom's birthday, always in late February, always a family affair. Where last time I'd sat silent, dissected by uncle's jibes and cousin's smirks, I swallowed. I wanted to say I was always there in some form. Yeah, I answered, this time I'll come. The taxi from the airport threaded through the sprawl of East Sao Paulo, where mango trees tangled with phone wires and neighborhood dogs barked at traffic. The houses hadn't changed, the pastel walls still cracked, the shops Assaug do Tonho, Padaria real faded but stubborn, people still sat out front sipping beer watching the world drift by. Mom's apartment buzzed with the chaos of family. The door opened and Carolina hugged me first, real, not performative, her arms tight. Her daughter Sophia hung shyly behind her legs. Inside, the smell of feijoa and frying meat, old Polaroids taped crookedly on the fridge. Uncle Volta was the first to break the hush. Look who decided to return, still plugging away at those cartoons. The room giggled quietly. Hugo grinned, teeth flashing. Got a real job now, heard you work with Americans. I smiled, steadying myself. I make games, I built one about Sao Paulo. People said it changed how they saw the city. Mom slid a cake onto the table, her hands shaking. He was on TV, she said quietly. They interviewed him with subtitles and everything, even showed his game. Tia Luard clucked, those things sell, I never understood. Can you buy a house with pixels? Sophia piped up, he made a city right, like Minecraft. That's when Carolina cleared her throat and nodded toward the old living room TV, dusty, antenna wrapped in tinfoil. Show them, Danny. I pulled the tablet from my bag, loaded the Switch cartridge. Want to see Arcada? I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Children crept closer, adults circled at safe distance. The game loaded. First, the rain-soaked skyline, the sound of thunder. The city stretched pixel by pixel, yellow-lit apartments, graffiti waiting at faded bus stops, peeling blue street signs, the reflection of neon on puddles. A dialogue box popped up, just a fragment, but I saw Mom's eyes widen. Que pingado irmão. The accent and playfulness were undeniably ours. This is our street, Mom murmured, a little lost, pressing a trembling hand to her lips. That's the bakery, that's where your father used to buy bread. Hugo leaned in, disbelief dissolving. Wait, that looks like here. Sophia grabbed the controller, giggling at the little in-game grandma with her grocery bags. Around her, uncles leaned in, asking how to talk to NPCs, where the best food stands were, how to crack an in-game joke. Someone checked their phone and found the Steam page, screenshots scrolled under their thumbs. Uncle Volta, for years the loudest critic, turned to me slowly, searching for a punchline, finding none. People all around the world play this. I met his gaze even though my hands trembled. People play it, yes. They write to me, kids from Japan, teenagers from rural Goiás, saying it reminds them of home, of wanting to leave, then wanting to return. Silence, then quietly the testimony of all they denied me, bounced off the cracked tiles, the low hum of city life through thin curtains, my mother's tears glimmering beneath her smile. I let the silence stretch as they absorbed what I'd brought home, the truth I lived through code and pixels and sleepless nights. Mom hugged me, her fingers tracing the hair behind my ear as she whispered, "Your father would have been proud." Maybe that was true. Or maybe it was enough, finally, to believe it could be. Later, over cake and stories, my family spoke about arcades and lost afternoons at the Mega Drive someone's friend once owned. Hugo asked which metro station was the best in Arcada, and Carolina, hand on my shoulder, said, "You started something none of us understood. I'm glad you didn't stop." Night fell soft across Sao Paulo, the city lights flickering beneath a bruised sky. The ache of their rejection had long since become part of me, but now, in the glow of the TV, surrounded by those I'd feared to lose, it felt something like redemption, a pixel at a time, mapping my way home.